It also has Juggernaut Peddler, which is an arena-only card if you haven't seen, which is like a white and a black for a 2/2 that vigilance that looks at your opponent's hand when it enters and replaces one of the card with Juggernaut, the 4-mana 5/3.
Such a
Quite very
ridiculous
good
card.
card, honestly.
Oh, it's
Uh,
one of the best creatures ever printed, probably. Yeah,
yeah,
it's insane.
yeah, Juggernauts are not very useful in normal games of Magic. Sometimes they die to it. It's very funny when that happens, and then
It is.
sometimes also like these blue decks can brainstorm away the Juggernaut, so they're not like down a card if that happens. But like until that happens, they are kind of down a card.
Yeah, and mostly things have to go pretty badly for you to be losing to a Juggernaut, so it ends up working out, especially in these super high power formats. I mean, the games.
Yeah, the games they lose to Juggernaut aren't like because they got raced. It's because they already lost basically, and the Juggernaut just closed the game.
All right, Jacob, I've kind of just been working all weekend, playing a little bit of Magic, but I've not had a chance to play any Arena Directs. You, on the other hand, striking it big, I hear.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I was doing exceptionally well on the first day, the Friday in 7 runs, I won 3 boxes.
Nice.
So that was pretty great.
Should have stopped there.
Should have stopped there because yeah, since then, um, that's funny. The Saturday I played 5 runs and had 2 6/2s, 2 4/2s, no box. Ended the day up gems from where I started, which I thought was pretty funny. And then Sunday and Monday was pretty bad. I had one box one of those days, but at some point I had 5 runs in a row where I didn't get more than like one win.
Yeah, that'll happen. That's variance for you, especially
Yeah.
with the structure of these tournaments. I think you kind of have to go in assuming that you're because it's best of one and you can only lose twice. Your distribution's like spread out. So in order to get your normal win-loss ratio, you're gonna have to have a lot of big failures.
Yeah, I think there's also like a lesson for me personally of like those first 2 days I really like I kind of acted like I was playing a very serious Magic tournament like the Pro Tour.
Oh yeah, that's
And
important.
I tried to keep doing that, and I think maybe I just can't do that more than 2 days in a row.
Oh yeah, that
It's
makes
just kind of
sense.
taxing mentally.
Especially with the rest of your life going on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna play some of these at some point. It's so interesting. It's going on for like more than a week, like 8 days or
Yeah,
something. Isn't that
yeah. I
wild?
haven't seen that. It hasn't shown me a timer yet for when it ends.
Yeah. Why do you think
Which
that
is
is? That they're able to do it for so long now?
I don't know. Maybe because this is also a little earlier than they normally do it. Maybe they've decided if they do it all early and for a long period of time that like everybody will get their fill. I mean, people won't really get their fill to get as much as they want, but like no one will complain that there wasn't enough opportunity. And then from there, like they're still maybe doing the print run of the collector boxes, so they can be like, okay, like we'll just print more collector boxes after the Arena Direct.
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
it doesn't seem like a matter of like what's left over in the warehouse quite yet or stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. It obviously is. Seems like it's probably pretty worthwhile for them. I wonder if their revenue has really shot up on Arena since they've started doing Arena Directs, and so they're experimenting with how far they can push it.
Yeah.
So that's cool. All right. Well, what else is going on? We got standard RCQs starting up soon. So I think what we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about standard, mostly just like some brainstorming of what's going on, what we see the top decks are at the moment, how new adaptions that we've liked or disliked that we've seen. It's only been a week, and
Yeah.
we haven't neither of us have played any big tournaments or anything, so we're still in the brainstorming phase, seeing how it's going, hypothesizing, and then after that, we're going to touch on some timeless. So those rare timeless enjoyers, you should be happy. I think we're going to do a little bit of timeless this episode, and then perhaps like a full episode timeless next week. So if you hate timeless, I'm sorry, but there is a timeless qualifier weekend coming up, and the thing is not a lot of people cover this content, and it is pretty important. A qualifier weekend is no joke. So, yeah, we're just gonna try covering it. That way, the people that are planning on playing have something to listen to.
Yeah. And yeah, I would say, I always enjoy kind of switching up formats. It's not like I've hated it, but when I play a lot of it, I do think there's some issues with the format. But I think, it's nice to just like have a change of pace. I know you have to be kind of a very invested Arena player to get into a format like this, though.
Yeah, you have to. It's funny, basically, because I played so many Arena Directs, not even recently, but I played so many in the past that my wild card count really got bolstered. So I'm able to
Yeah,
build
I
these
was
decks.
almost out of Mythic wild cards, and then these Arena Direct came, and I'm back to like 16.
Nice,
So I
nice.
can build my sideboard opposition agents or something now that I was like holding out on in one of my
Yeah,
decks.
I mean, once you do finally build these decks, though, I mean, I expect a lot of the cards that you craft are going to be useful for a long time
The
between
other thing
historic and timeless.
I gotta say is if you're a big Legacy enjoyer, I would give this format a shot because it seems pretty similar and like you can play it on your phone and like I mean I guess if you're like a Legacy purist, you're not gonna like it because there's differences, but just like I think a lot of the same things that are cool about Legacy are basically all in this format. Um, and it's like there's strip mine legal, but there's not wasteland legal, and so ultimately it means people just don't really play basics to play around wasteland ever. But the play patterns are kind of the same. You just don't really get to play around it,
Yeah,
and it's just like not that big of a deal. And then there's like some weird things like Library of Alexandria is newly legal, and Vampiric Tutor and Mystical Tutor as well, and we're still figuring out if those are good because they're kind of new.
yeah, totally. Before we jump into timeless, I have some things to say about it. Let's go through our some standard thoughts.
Yeah,
Um, so we had the bans last week. Gran, Badgermal Cub, and Storm Chaser's Talents. Have you seen how the metagame has developed since then at all? Um,
it's not surprising, I guess. I mean, yeah, I've been paying attention to it. Um, on Goldfish right now. In fact, I think though I should make sure I don't filter by past 30 days and rather like past 7 days. You're gonna see Landfall, Demir Midrange, Mardu Discard, Demir Excruciator, Is It Spelementals, and then it says Life Gain. But if you lumped together Jeskai Control and Four Color Control, that's going to be up there too. In fact, it would be ahead of Spelementals. It looks like even ahead of Excruciator actually.
yeah. Okay. So mostly the decks we had before with some nerfs, and then I guess some returning decks. Not like they've ever been gone, but they're getting a bit more of a boost with like Dimir Midrange, Dimir Excruciator. I think Mardu Discard was kind of always on the fringes of tier one and pretty popular, but
Yeah, so like obviously Lessons is dead without Gran. I think that was basically the best card in the deck. Accumulated knowledge is or accumulated wisdom is what other people would point at, but that cost reduction was just too important. Maybe a deck with tablet especially will still fit in this lessons package, but especially right now that doesn't seem like what people want to do. Um, Blue red decks, Spelementals was not a Storm Chasers talent deck, so it lost nothing. It seems like the decks that we're playing Storm Chasers talent are trying to adapt. I mean, losing your one drop in a very aggressively slanted kind of deck is just a huge blow. It's like the worst thing that could happen to those decks. Storm Chasers talent, I think, is just definitely the best card that was in those decks. And then Landfall is still around, but it lost Badgermal Cub. But unlike decks that people would call Cub decks normally, Landfall was kind of not a Cub deck, despite having the card. I think it was really just kind of the best 2 mana kind of mana accelerant that it had available, and I'm sure it was really good in Green Mirrors. But now the Green Mirrors, none of them have Badgermal Cub anymore, so you're not really behind in those, I think. So Landfall might actually be quite a big winner here.
yeah. Maybe sticking on Landfall for a bit. I'm trying to see what their replacements have been. I'm mostly seeing like Shared Roots
Yeah,
and just
Shared
a couple
Roots.
other cards.
People aren't necessarily just taking out 4 for 4. I'm seeing more keen-eyed curators kind of filling those slots too. Another one I've seen that I thought was pretty cool is Great Divide Guide, the 2/3 ally. Notably, I like that it has 3 toughness because there's a lot of firebending lessons from the or Thunder Magic, whatever they're playing from the control decks. Um, I like that the Divide Guide being a 2/3 can kind of dodge those shock effects. And then even though this deck doesn't play any allies, it's still a mana dork and it lets you tap your fetch lands for mana. So you don't have to commit to your landfall triggers until you want them.
Yeah, that's totally true. Burst Lightning as well doesn't get hit. To me, that sounds a lot better than Shared Roots. I'm not loving Shared Roots. I mean, maybe it's okay.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's a
shared
fine
roots
card.
is reliable. It'll get you that mana. It's good with Sapling Nursery in your deck, which I'm seeing more copies of, which makes sense because maybe control is on the rising. Just that guaranteed forest right into play. Your opponent doesn't really get to interact with that. The Divide Guide, though, yeah, if you're playing Landfall Mirrors or something, I'd have to imagine it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And
It's just tough not to have an actual creature, right?
yeah,
Like some games come down to you just finding any creature you have lying bumming around after your opponent's killed a lot of creatures, and then
yeah,
you might form Harmonizer it, or you get a bunch of counters on it with oh, what's it called? Earthbender Ascension.
yep. I'm not really seeing any Elven Passages. It's a little disappointing.
Yeah. I so look, I still think there's a chance we're gonna see some new cards show up. I've been unimpressed lately with the variety of new cards that people on Magic Online in particular, where a lot of this data is being pulled from, are using. Like I think there's some good players over there, but I think for some whatever reason they don't tend to innovate very much. That is to say that I still think like the top 10% of cards from The Hobbit, even though it's definitely a weaker set, it's definitely more in line with the other smaller sets that we saw this year rather than something like even Marvel, which wasn't a super strong set, but definitely was bigger and had a few really powerful cards. I think, like I still kind of want to try uh the green 2 drop, the Bejeweled Warg in Landfall, and I've been trying Gandalf and Prowess, which is interesting when we get to Prowess because I think you have to change the deck. I don't think it's the same like fast speedy deck anymore, and in fact that does make it worse against something like Control, which is the matchup actually that I've been having trouble with when I play that online.
Yeah,
Um, and so maybe that's not still a good deck, but you know, I still think there's room for some stuff. Like even with Marvel, it took a while for people to catch on to Thor and some other things. So I'm still somewhat hopeful, but I agree. I mean, it's not a ton of impact from the new set.
yeah. I'm looking over if anything else is impacting it, but it doesn't really seem like it. Um,
Specifically from The Hobbit or for Landfall.
from The Hobbit.
Yeah. Um, like
Yeah,
the
the other.
Elven Passage thing is that I still think they could maybe try some. I haven't even seen any lists that have any. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, you know, I think the few people I've mentioned it to, and it's just like I'm talking about fitting in, these decks all have 14 forests, and I'm just talking about like cutting 2 forests for 2 Elven Passage, and I know you're gonna say like you need your turn one green, but it is turn one green for half your one drops anyways.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, maybe we could cut one of either Escape Tunnel or Fable Passage. Also, you know.
I think Fabled Passage is too good. I would just
Okay.
leave those as 4 for sure. The Escape Tunnel, maybe you could go to 3. The unblockable thing does come up sometimes, or often, just with curving like Ice Till into Might Form. But
What if we cut these stupid shared routes and just played an extra land? Guess we'd be at
yeah, that's
27.
certainly, I think, in the realm of possibility too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 27 sounds like a lot, but you are a landfall deck, so I don't.
Yeah, the Listo Sapling Nursery used to have 27. It's not that weird.
Okay. I will say that definitely I think mono green is the way to go with Sapling Nursery. Sapling Nursery has gotten a
It
lot
seems,
better.
yeah, it got much more well positioned.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Landfall is pretty good into Control typically, and it's pretty good into Excruciator too, I think. And then Spelementals, I think you have to work for. I mean, a nice part too is that Lessons is gone. And I would say that Landfall was good into Lessons, but you were dedicating a lot of your sideboard to this mix of Graveyard Hate and Disenchants. And like now, I'm not sure you need Graveyard Hate or Disenchants.
Sure.
So
Do you,
like,
do you have other good cards you want to play in your mono green deck sideboard though?
well, by far, Elementals are the best things you can play against Spelementals. Just to dodge
Oh, right,
everything
right.
bouncing them. They have the Mossborn Hydras for the mirror, but like stuff like Sandman, um, is an elemental. They already have Esper Origins, I guess. I see Torpor Orbs are very common in the sideboard for both Sunderflock and maybe for the Excruciator matchup. I'm not sure exactly how the best way to approach the Excruciator matchup is, but I will say when I was really focusing on Landfall, I thought Torpor Orb was maybe reasonable because I really felt like the only way I was losing was to the card Doomsday Excruciator.
Okay, that's interesting.
You
Um,
know, they have Deceit. I mean, so they can do the thing where they could evoke Deceit for 2 mana 5/5s, and my response to that is just like, I know you're risking letting your Torpor Orb getting hit by a discard spell, but maybe just wait until closer to turn 6 to play the Torpor Orb.
sure. You probably want to get it down before turn like 4-ish though, too, right? In case they try to do a Spider-Man play.
Yeah, I mean, if the Excruciator's in their graveyard, then yeah, you'll have to pay attention to
Right.
that. But it's kind of hard for them to do that all in one turn, right?
Yeah,
They,
no, I
in fact,
agree.
they
Or
just
even
keep
like a
forgetting.
deceit. But I mean, by
Yeah,
then, maybe them having the 5/5 isn't a disaster.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Um, yeah. So, what about Demure midrange? I see on Goldfish 12%. That's kind of crazy to me. I've never been super happy with this deck, but I know there's a lot of enjoyers. What do we got going on with this deck?
I think this deck is good against Excruciator Control and Spelementals.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And you could probably hedge your deck to be as good as possible versus landfall, and it's probably not that bad if you really focus on that matchup. I think you're pretty naturally good against the first three decks I said, so you probably don't have to try very hard.
Yeah, maybe we could. I kind of want to get some Wan Shi Tongs in there. See, this list I'm looking at has
Yeah,
one. That's a decent place to start.
yeah, that would be, yeah, the 1/1 split, not bad. Um, yeah, I was thinking this deck might be quite good right now.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that makes sense. I have been playing against it a lot on ladder, but I kind of expected that.
It's not a deck that wanted to play against Grand Patron World Cover Storm Chasers talent. I'll tell you that much.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's it's pretty happy
Um,
to see all three of those banned.
yeah, totally. This list that got first place in a challenge by Claudio. Looks like he went the route of like four Dreambeavers, some Wondrous
Yeah,
Wasps, so lots of little guys.
the hidden lairs are now another turn 1 black source.
Oh, that's nice. Only
They might be
23 lands.
colorless. They might be colorless on a future turn, but maybe this deck can operate on, turn 1 black, and then turn 2 you have Island or Gloom Lake Verge, and the blue and the one is actually fine, stuff like that.
Yeah. They probably used to play what, like Multiversal Passage?
Yeah. And we
And
see in this list on Goldfish, there is actually a lot of new cards from Marvel. It's in the other section, but there's Hidden Lair, Wondrous Wasp, and We Say Thee Nay. All of that makes sense to me.
yeah, totally. All cards I thought of.
This is the perfect deck for We Say Thee Nay, I think. I mean, Floodpits Drowner having Vigilance is like a real gift for that card.
Hmm. Hidden Lair's interesting because Multiversal Passage was good in these decks because it worked with Verge, but it doesn't work with Hidden Lair. So once you have the layers, you're kind of wanting to play more basics.
Yeah, I see 8 basics here. I see we got to 10 untapped black for Dream Beavers. I don't mind that number.
Hmm. Do you think 23 lands okay? I guess since we have the Dreambeavers, because I think they
Yeah,
used to play
that makes
something like
sense.
25 before.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean the Dream Beavers would help. You have the maps too, and now that you have more 1 drops, the maps are also going to have targets more often.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about that, but maybe I'm too worried about it. It's also like some of these awkward dual lands can be worse if you're playing a lower land count because you can get stuck more often.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I think this deck is, I don't know, my impression is really good against Spellmentals. Um,
I understand why it's good against control. I haven't really thought about the play pattern versus Spellmentals. Is it probably just the same thing where it's like Kaito is a big nightmare?
they play a lot of cards that kill anything. Bitter Triumph, Shoot the Sheriff to start.
Oh yeah, that's
So
a good
that's a
point.
big deal. Just like, your removal is working against them. They have Reckoning Hex that they're obviously going to board out, sure. And then they also play Flood Pits Drowner, which like really can eat a lot of the Lava Axe potential, I'd say, from the Spelementals deck, where like they can stun something, they could shuffle it back in if they want, they could chump block with it. It's really annoying to bounce Flood Pits Drowner with Sunderflock, because you could just still, especially if everyone has a Kaido in play, they're just gonna like keep protecting their Kaido and killing you.
Right.
I would say Flood Pits Drowner is like one of the best cards you can play against Spelementals, kind of generally.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess a lot of times with Spellmonths, you probably try to set up turns where you can like lava axe them with crabs and stuff, and this can really
Yeah, they have
hurt that
Strategic
plan.
Betrayal in the sideboard.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me.
It's
Okay.
it might be a good time to play a lot of Spell Snare in Spelementals. I haven't thought about that, but I think that's a matchup where you could be happy with 4 spell snare.
Yeah. And I bet, in terms of RCQs, I remember the 2 standard RCQs I played. This deck was really popular even then, so
Yeah.
I don't know, that could just be my meta or whatever, but I bet this will be popular at your RCQs. It's just the sort of deck that RC players like, I think. Um,
Yeah, it's a pretty fun deck to play.
yeah, so maybe you want to play it yourself, but also if you're set on something else, I would definitely say be prepared for this sort of deck. Um, Try to find ways to kill Kaido and that sort of thing, even though it's not super easy. This person's got the Ooze in their sideboard and Raven Eagle. You like either of those?
I don't know what they're for.
Kind of whatever. Just like
Yeah.
graveyard hate creatures. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about the Ooze versus Ghost Vacuum versus a deck where I already said Spell Snare's their best card.
Fair enough. All right. How much do you know about Mardu discard? I lose to this deck a lot. I'm generally pretty impressed with it.
Yeah, I know Edgar Magyar was really into this deck. Um, hasn't really lost anything. I'm trying to remember what matchups he was worried about. The Iron Shield off card seems very good. This is still a great practice defense deck. Um,
I think it might have been control, oddly enough. And I think there was a
I remember
thing.
what it is. It was blue white Momos. He thought
Oh,
he,
yeah,
he
yeah,
thought he
yeah.
could never win that matchup. They're like the same deck as you, but all their creatures have flying, so you
That
just
makes sense.
never get an opportunity to win a race.
And Sage of the Skies is probably a nightmare with
Yeah.
their own practice offenses and stuff.
Sage of Sky is also a nightmare for the Demir mid range deck, but luckily Blue White Momo is like the only deck doing that. But if you have a lot of local Demir decks, I'm guessing Blue White would be quite good against them.
Yeah, probably. This seems good against Demir too.
Iron Shield Elf sounds pretty annoying. Just getting the 1-drops. The 1-drops are some of the best things you can play against Demir. They're not very good at blocking.
No.
Their deck generally isn't, so being an aggro deck like this matters a lot.
This
Yeah,
deck's
looking at
just
the
like
list.
really fast. It goldfishes really fast.
Yep, I agree. I know Edgar, I think, likes 23 lands. Desecrix slash Carnage, you want at least one of to go get with chapter 3 of Cool Butt Rude sometimes. Similarly, I know I'm seeing a 2-2 Erode Recruiting Hex split, which is kind of interesting. I was always like Edgar always had this weird mix of Burst Lightning Erode and Recruiting Hex, but at some point he said on his podcast that he plays 1 Erode always because he finds himself tutoring it a lot with the gamble. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. Like a 1-mana kill anything, like a Sunderflock or something.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that all adds up to me. Inti, not my favorite idea right now. So many shocks running around, I guess. Whereas, 1-drop's dying to shock, that's whatever. The 1-drop's also outscale shock. And then Hardened Academic, at least, has haste, and then Iron Shield Elf doesn't die to shock. So
Yeah.
he's like a standout of a card where every card in this deck is kind of hard to trade removal efficiently into, and then you just like play these inties, and it's like the one card that your opponent could just like be like, oh, thank God you played inti. Shock.
Yeah.
Like
Totally. I might be interested in playing like maybe more Tursas instead. Maybe
yeah,
that means
cheap cards would be still nice. It would still be nice for sure.
I just don't know what else you'd play.
I'm sure it's been a while since Edgar talked about this archetype, but he had some cool thoughts. There's like another Spider-Man card that you can exile from your graveyard to give its abilities to a creature or stuff like that. I think he had played a one of too.
Interesting. Okay. Some Monument to the Endurance is like the Cyber Plan. That seems decent.
Yeah, and I haven't thought about if any new cards matter here.
Just like Golem, maybe.
Yeah.
You could try that. I
Yeah.
haven't seen really anyone try Golem, and I haven't tried it myself either. It's the sort of card that like doesn't. It's not obvious where you should put it, and it's not really a build around either.
Yeah. I mean, so if I was looking at this deck, I would just like think about 23rd land or another 1-mana instant or something. I don't know about monuments. It's like, to me, I would really just want to make sure my draws are always like smooth.
Yeah, I
Um,
wouldn't want to load up on too much removal. I don't think you want to interact too much.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I mean,
Edgar just played like the fifth thing
yeah,
sometimes, stuff
totally.
like
That
that.
that seems
Or
fine.
like, I mean, I don't know if anybody's really playing any non-creature stuff right now. It doesn't sound like it. So like, you probably don't need like a seam rip to sometimes tutor. But like that's another thing you could like squeak in as a cheap removal spell that also happens to maybe hit something that you might want to hit. Maybe you want to hit their cool but rude.
Yeah, I'd be a little surprised if. I mean, it could just be this list I'm looking at that got first place in a challenge, but I'd be a little surprised if the right number of like Carnage is 3 and practice offense is only 3.
Yeah,
Seems like
that's how I feel too.
I might play like 4 practice offense before I play the third Carnage. And the second Carnage kind of makes sense to me, but 3, I mean, maybe I just don't
There's
understand
also
how
still
good
like
it
the
is. But
one mana equipment. Here's a list. Let's see. I see a list from Bugsy post ban, and I only want to mention that because Bugsy won one of the Canadian RCs with this deck
oh, okay.
with Edgar's list.
Oh, Cecil.
Yeah, so that's
He's got
another one drop
Cecil. Yeah,
threat.
yeah, yeah. That's a good
We
card.
got a Casey Jones is something different to do. Um, we've got 4 practice offense. We've got a 3-1 erode split. I think 3 hex 1 erode, kind of hinting towards what I was saying that like erode's not that good, but sometimes you want to kill a big thing, but those are longer games where you might just tutor it.
Yeah, why don't we have more Casey Jones? That card seems good. Because it's kind of like
Well,
Tursa.
I just don't want that many expensive cards. You know,
Yeah, no, I get it. But like the last person didn't have any, but I guess they had
yeah,
Tursas. But like, this list is 2 Tursas, a Casey, only one on Carnage. I definitely like this more for practice offense.
yeah. The double red for Casey is not that easy with this man, I would say.
Yeah, that's fair. How is the mana in this tech?
I'm sure if you count everything up, it's good. Let's see. We've
It's
got
probably painful.
painful because it's 4 starting time. We've got 14 black. We've got 16 white. I don't know why it's that many white. This deck is not that white. And then we've got 17 red.
It
But
might be that many white because both
it's
Vantage and
15
Concealed
black.
Courtyard are white.
Yeah, it's how to get less painful. And then
Yeah.
there's no planes or whatever. Yeah, that's mostly why.
I guess you can't play the Verges in this land. The mana base of Verges is too terrible.
I guess like double white is maybe I'm not giving as much credit as I should because you're just trying to cast practice offense so much that like casting turn 4 hardened academic plus offense is probably common. Casting 2 practice offenses on turn 4 is probably common with double flashback, or just turn 5 having needing double white also to just cast it from your hand and flash it back.
Yeah, that could be part of it too.
It's like the reason to play the deck, right? So like you want
Yeah, for
to have
sure.
every line available with it, and yeah, like you said, it's also there's no Blackcleave Cliffs, right? So this is how you
Yeah.
get a less painful mana base.
It does seem, speaking of practice offense, it seems like people mostly agreed with your assessment that the green white deck got a huge nerf. Because I'm not seeing it like anywhere. That could be people just choosing not to play it and not even trying it. But I thought it might still be a decent deck. Obviously, Cub was really good for it.
Yeah, I'm just not sure you can ever like it comes down a lot to the landfall matchup where I thought those decks were kind of beating up on landfall and Cub's speed is the biggest reason why.
Yeah, okay.
And like otherwise, what are you doing that's like not just what the landfall deck kind of does anyways?
Well, you still have like the mana creatures into Gear Hulk, into practice offense type
Yeah.
plays. I mean, it's really just mostly practice offense. I mean, Gear Hulk's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, the Marvel land you can probably not play with Gear Hulk.
No,
Gathering Place.
no, not if you're a low land count deck that doesn't search out basics or anything.
Yeah.
Um, the Momo deck doesn't seem very popular either. I guess the Momo deck had trouble against like what control,
I think it's not good against control or spelementals.
right?
I think there was worries about it against landfall, and I remember my teammates played it Strixhaven, and I think the data said it was fine against landfall. I would kind of say with the little bit of that deck I've played that like it seems just kind of pretty die roll dependent, where neither deck plays defense very well, and the blue white Momo deck just flies over and kills you
Yeah,
pretty reliably. And I think that'll just work when you're on the play, and then when you're on the draw, the green landfall deck's just gonna harmonize you and kill you, and you're just gonna die also. That's what I'm guessing happens in most games.
yeah.
I
I'm
see
wondering.
Watchwolf 92 got fourth in the challenge. That's Jonathan Sukenik, my teammate from the Team Pro Tour, that we got seventh at, and he took a long break from Magic and seems to be getting back into playing Standard on Magic Online.
Nice. I'll look at his list a bit. It's got a Wan Shi Tong. It's cool. Seems hard to cast, but hey, it's just one. I guess you have Drum.
Yeah, I remembered too. I was talking about in our Discord how I felt like the last time I played the Momo deck, I had some one of creature I liked getting after Pixie. And I realized that creature. It was pointed out to me that creature was Grand Grand. You can no
Oh,
longer play, but it was quite good to like tap to your drums and get
that
some
makes
boosts. And you
sense to
could
me.
practice offense away for value, but also it's a Quantum Riddler deck, so you often could like draw two for turn, play cards, loot with your Grand Grand, draw two, discard one, stuff like that.
Yeah. Looks
It was
like we're on
pretty good actually.
looks like we're on Flitterwing Nuisance as the
Yeah, I don't really. The other ones I don't care. You don't have to play them.
okay.
They just weren't even that good.
I feel like I want more than two Pixies.
Two is what I played before. I don't know whether you should
All
play
right.
like two or three. You get
It's just
Momo a lot too. Like
I see.
even when you have Momo, you'll be like, I'm just gonna get a backup Momo so that I can make sure on a future turn I can go like Momo Sage of the Skies. You know?
Yeah. I may overestimate this deck, but I don't know. It seems really good. The Quantum Riddler Daydream thing is just so good when it works. I know it doesn't come
Yeah.
together that
The,
often.
the Gleaming Bastion surprisingly good here because your basic count is inflated by the fact that you have the Starfield Shepherds.
Totally. And you're like a sorcery speed deck, so that matters, even though
Yeah.
you're blue white.
I'm
Like,
surprised to see no Wondrous Wasps. You mentioned Sorcery Speed, which made me think about that card despite it having Flash. But I think casting it for one on your turn with Momo, you're probably pretty happy to do.
oh yeah. It shuts off mana creatures, right?
Yeah, it's quite good against Landfall. It's good. It turns off abilities, so it's good against both Land Elves and Saz's Chocobo.
And it's good as a flash thing against like,
like,
Harmonizer.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could definitely see trying that. That sounds nice. Do we have any
I saw
sideboard
one.
of this deck? No. Got Spectacular Spider-Man's an interesting cyber plan in the sideboard here. Kind of makes sense. Go
Yeah,
with Disdainful Strokes.
yeah, something to be a sweeper. You could maybe this could be a We Saving Day deck too, though. The part where you want to leave a creature back is not ideal in your all flying creatures deck because you're certainly able to turn things sideways if you want.
Yeah.
And two mana, I'll say, on your opponent's turn is actually quite costly in this deck.
Right.
Um,
Green-white was probably a bad matchup. Right?
yeah, probably.
Ouroborid and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, Ouroborid's probably not a card you want to face with this deck.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, looking at the top decks, this deck doesn't seem so bad. Maybe your control matchup isn't very good, but I would think now that you have all these blue cards, maybe it's okay.
I think you definitely need to play. I don't know. Like when I played this deck last, I feel like I played a Spell Pierce and maybe just in my sideboard. And by the end of the event, I was like, I want two Spell Pierce in my sideboard next time. You know, like
Yeah, it's
that's the type
kind
of thing I
thing.
want to do to beat them. Like I don't want to, grind them out. Like I just want my Quantum Riddler to be hard to kill, and that's why it beats them, not because it is a value card. You know.
Yeah, or maybe you just dump your hand and you have a
Yeah.
spell pierce for their sweeper.
And then they die to practice the bets. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's mostly what he's going for with these Spectacular Spider-Mans, to be fair.
But that's 3 mana to beat a sweeper. You know, it's like I mean, I know you could flash it in and then have it later, but you're at risk of them shocking it and then
Untapping and wrathing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might try some spell pierces. I mean, something like that goes a long way for
It also just hits the
matchup.
tablet somewhat often, right? That's like a nice
Yeah,
tempo play.
and for RCQs, I think Control is also likely to be popular. Again, just the sort of deck, especially the Revelation builds. What about Demir Excruciator? That looks pretty popular. I've never really been a fan of this deck, but it does beat me a lot, so
Yeah. I mean, so I'm gonna keep saying this. I mean, because like I think a lot of people point at the tablet control deck, but every deck I see kind of popping up now just sounds like it would be good against control. And I think
Yeah,
this
I mean-
one is like this one's like the main one because like in my opinion, the stack of duresses and deceits is like for that matchup.
I think ultimately that's probably why they didn't take any action against Control. I mean, there's just so many tools in the format to
Yeah,
fight it.
it really shouldn't be, yeah, like a struggle to beat control decks. I think.
If you really want to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
got a
this deck's
Modoc.
always fine. Yeah, Modoc is funny. I don't know if that's any good. Um, I don't know too much about this deck. I know the Cavern of Souls is really awkward because you have all these color intensive creatures and none of them really share a type. You have human on Emeritus and Spider Man, but then if you named human, then you're delaying your demon Doomsday Excruciator, and if you name elemental for deceit, you're delaying your blue blue black black Spider Man or your Doomsday Excruciator. But I'll also say that you play a bunch of 6 mana cards, really expensive creatures, and people register counter spells for them, so it's really hard to not play Cavern of Souls too.
Yeah, it's horrendous for the mana base, but it's like crucial to the deck
That you,
against some control
yeah,
decks because it's like the matter of, especially with Doomsday Excruciator, um, like you could just hold the cavern so that they never can feel the rune or whatever, um, and then you just play your Excruciator. You pretty much win. There's, if you play multiple caverns, which I have played against decks that have like up to, three or four
yeah. I
caverns,
feel like I've seen two or three a lot.
you can just start running out your Deceits and Spider-Mans really quick. That being said, you really got to, prioritize what you want to be good against because it is really bad for the mana base. And if that's really the only matchup, like you're going to feel pretty stupid if you have it against, you know, green decks or whatever. Can't even cast your stock up, something like that.
Black Widow Super Spy out of the sideboard. This is like a perfect deck to at least try that.
Hooray!
Completely, is on a different access than the rest of your deck. Your deck Shock and Reckoning Hex are not good against your deck. So even if your opponent knows you're going to side this card in, they're still in a kind of a pickle as to like how much respect they want to leave for it in their deck.
Yeah, totally. Especially the red decks, they're just gonna
Yeah,
immediately side out all their red stuff.
it's possible somehow the card is too bad or some card I'm not thinking about right now covers people more than I'm giving it credit for, but still I'm glad people are at least trying it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems great to me. Do you like it more than uh Gollum?
Oh, you could try Golem too. Try one of each. They're legendary. That's the world we live in.
Yeah, yeah. Gollum. Guess you could try it main Gollum. I don't know what that does for you though. Just opens it up to dying. I mean, it's kind of weird because that card, like, you're not so unhappy if your opponent kills it and you get to draw a card off it, but maybe that's still not worth it in a deck like this.
I'm sure you're happy if that happens, but there is like an issue where you go like odd and your opponent's like seer, and
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's
and
an
you
issue.
go even and it dies for 1 mana, so that's not allowed. It's like,
Yeah,
or you have
yeah.
Elemental's deck has Prismari Charm too that can ping it and ping you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think this deck wants to make an exchange like that where you don't go up a card and you go even on cards, and even going even on cards and even on mana, I'm not sure is what the blue black deck is exactly like happy to do.
Right. Is there something that's new about this like life gain deck? Why is this such a huge? Is this just like are people doing arena things?
I'm guessing it did well in like an early challenge and people are copying it. Um,
Like every
this is
time
a
I
deck
play against this
I've
deck, it's
played.
kind of mid.
Yeah, I don't think it's good. It's a deck I once put a lot of time into.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, well, I was just having fun playing on ladder or whatever. I think I've talked about it before.
I mean, you
Uh,
do have a rabbit cleric in your deck. That's pretty cool.
yeah, I think this deck really needs. I see the 4 and 4 and the one Aunt May. I think it needs like it wishes it could play just like 12 case of the Uneaten Feast as its one drops. Like that. That would be ideal.
I remember having the thought that the black life game players are going to be eaten good with Reality Fracture because I've already seen some of the previews and there's like several life gain cards.
Okay.
I don't know if they're any good, and that's obviously jumping the gun a little bit, but yeah, like there's
I mean,
another
Amalia
one
is
mana Soul
cool.
Sister.
Holly is cool. Mozio's kind of a new card since I played this deck. It's kind of cool. Um,
Yeah, Mozio sounds pretty good.
and then the Lunar Convocation card is how you like get the ball rolling and go. And
Yeah.
then my deck, I felt like I fit in a bunch of Fountain Ports as extra lands, basically, which I see is not happening here. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I like Fountain Port in this deck. It's funny. The starting towns, I assume, are mostly for the
They're for the lose life on purpose. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't even
yeah.
find the card they're for, but yeah.
Lunar convocations and is hidden in the
Oh,
second
right, right. Well, there was
above their lands.
I thought they played like a 2 mana bat too that did it. That's what I was looking for, but I guess not that.
They have. I remember I didn't like that card either. It's just like a Johnny's Pridemate style card, which is not, grindy like this deck kind of is. It's just a Turtle Life type card
Fair enough.
that asks for things to be going right anyways, because you need to be gaining life.
Yeah.
The Deep Cavern bats are quite good too, because that's like disruptive and like it's kind of like having a Soul Warden, even though things can't like stack up for you, it's like a consistent source of gaining 1 life per turn to trigger your cards.
Yeah. Um so there's a local standard RCQ at my store this weekend, and I've been debating playing. I'm in a spot where like I don't have a deck I love. I kind of want to work on a control deck, but I basically don't have time to like tune a control deck, I don't think. So ultimately, I may decide to just play the Arena Direct instead. But I am considering some things. I built like a deck, like I said, a prowess deck with Gandalf, and I had most of these cards already. I just had to buy Gandalf, so I actually played it in real life at just like a F&M type thing. Um, and so I have liked Gandalf, Goblins, Bane, and Prowess. It's definitely worse than Talent because it makes your deck slower, and I think overall Talent was better as a late game card because it was so fast and powerful with Boomerang. Everybody knows that. It also makes it so you can't play as many Boomerangs in your main deck, which was actually I think a secret power um,
Yeah.
to that deck. And then let's see, I was playing some Jeskai Control on ladder, and it's pretty good. But a lot of people are playing Jeskai Control,
Mm-hmm.
so like there's an arm race going on. So I kind of hate that. So I don't know like how exactly you're supposed to tune deck for like a real life event if versus an online event.
Here's my recommendation: if you are playing an RCQ or our listeners, uh, my suggestion would be to play Landfall.
Yeah, that's a
It,
good idea.
when we don't know what's going on, you don't play any reactive stuff. I would play the nurseries. It seems like, yeah, you also, I see people are lower. Yeah, put the Melt Traders Resolves in the sideboard or play only 1 or 2, not 4. That seems like not a card you need to be playing right now.
Yeah, I don't own the landfall cards
Yeah, but
until like it's either tune a control deck or just not play, and it's gonna be really hard to tune. So like I'm considering not even playing. So that's kind of
yeah,
where I'm at. Landfall would be a great choice, I think,
yeah.
for an RCQ.
I just think
Uh,
you won't go that wrong.
yeah, it's a little tricky to play, so make sure to get your reps in. But if you own the cards, you've probably played it. But yeah, it's a great deck, and people may underestimate it because of the Badger Bowl Club ban too,
Yep.
since it's only like the first couple of weeks still.
Playing a bunch of Keen-Eyed Curators and Soul Guide Lanterns, I think, is pretty good against Spellmentals too. Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually playing blue white control on the ladder because it seems to be favored, at least the way I built it, into the Jeskai decks. Just because you can establish more of a inevitability long game against them, and you don't care that much if they like resolve some revelations. You can wrath it away and draw cards and keep up. It's not that big of a deal. And I really liked Plunder the Troll Shaw as I was trying it a bit. I think I like it more in blue white control than Jeskai, but it seems like a pretty solid card. I wouldn't be afraid to play a couple copies in your control deck. Um, just pretty nice when you can cycle it or get some value off it, or when it's just sitting around in your graveyard. Sometimes what would come up is I'd have like a Plunder of the Troll Shaws in my graveyard, and I'd also have a Consult in my hand, and like Consult look at 4 pick 2 is like not super powerful, so a lot of times I'll just play the Troll Shaws, and then later in the game you can use the Consult either for 2 mana or for 4 mana again, and then you get a much deeper dig, which is really what makes that card super powerful. So
Right.
kind of liked that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add besides that, to be honest. Oh, I tried a little bit of Settle the Wreckage.
I don't think that card's good.
Yeah, I don't think I want to main deck it. It's like kind of okay
You know what
against.
deck it would be good in? Blue White Momos, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just
It's
because like you could almost put it down face up on the table versus Landfall because it's just such a race. You could just say like here, like
yeah,
I've I've assembled my flying power in the air, and you're dead next turn, and like I don't really
Yeah,
care if
and to be fair, even with
you're gonna get
control,
settled.
those are pretty much the only matchups where it's good.
Yeah.
It's okay against Mardu discard if they don't play around it, but like Kaito, it's kind of good against Kaito,
Oh, funny. Yeah.
and Landfall. So I have it like I think it's a reasonable sidebar card, but I wouldn't want to play it main. You
Yeah.
just
That
if for
sounds right.
people, yeah, for people who maybe think it might be good, the problem with it is as soon as your opponent is even a modicum of competent and they're aware it could be in your deck, or if they've seen it, or if they know your deck list, it becomes super problematic for you to leave up 4 mana and they play around it. Even if you have other instants, like if that's what you're relying on as your sweeper slot, they can just attack with one creature or attack with a couple creatures or set it up so they get value from the lands. It's just there's a lot of trouble that can come up. But very specific cases, if you hold it up against Kaito, it's like one of the only ways to answer a Kaito at instant speed. That can be pretty nice. Also exiles Enduring Curiosity, so all those things add up to something pretty good. They mostly have to attack you to get card advantage, and they don't use their lands that well in that matchup. And then
Right.
obviously landfall. They have a lot of just having instant speed. Anything against them is pretty nice for
Makes
killing
sense.
creatures. Yeah, I don't have too much to add more about standard. What about you?
No, I've been looking at some of the other decks, but nothing. I see Smog and Mono Red. Um, I see a couple Jennifer Walters in the blue white High Noon Voice of Victory deck. Some more some more Voice of Victories.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's any events coming up for standard that are important? I know the
Just the
next
RC season. That's
RC
RCQ
season.
season. Sorry. Yeah. Right now, it seems like a lot of people are, they're shifting gears to thinking about standard for their local RCQs. That's all I really know of. Because Spotlight and the Spotlights and RCs coming up the next few months are all modern.
What about the next Pro Tour?
That's modern.
Oh wow. Okay.
That's part of why I'm going and kind of focusing more on playing some modern and decks I like is because I feel like my takeaway has just been that like I can keep on top of modern, and I seem to be doing pretty well at it. And I think a deck like Jeskai Chant specifically, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, that like I think a strength you need to have to play that deck is understanding what the decks you're playing against do.
So like ongoing preparation or at least, paying attention, keeping on top of the format's pretty important.
Yeah, and you have to take risks with that deck and kind of hope sometimes that you're not gonna die, or you also have to just kind of like know, like I'm gonna cast Orm's Chant, on your upkeep, and you kind of have to know like what you're playing around when you do that. I think.
Spots do that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Um yeah, so standard. Well, that's interesting. I mean, RCQs are pretty important, but if standard doesn't evolve much, we probably won't talk about it much going forward, but we'll see. If there's some big change shifts or whatnot, we'll touch on it. I mean, I really like standard, but if there's nothing coming up, then there's nothing coming up. Okay, why don't we do like a little bit of like a dip into what's going on with Timeless, maybe your first impressions about it. It's got a lot of new cards since we talked about it last.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've ever really talked about it, right? I
Uh,
don't think I've played this
maybe not.
format.
Maybe we just did we do like a half episode on it? Maybe not. Maybe you're
Yeah.
right. Maybe I'm thinking just historic.
Yeah. This is basically the highest power format on Arena. There's only some restricted cards, nothing is banned. Um, if you're wondering, because maybe you've seen on Vintage Cube that there's things like Black Lotus, that's technically not a craftable card on Arena. So this is kind of like a legacy format where it has some things more powerful than legacy and some things that are less powerful than legacy. But I'd say on average it's about the same power level as legacy. Because recently it got Daze and Force of Will, which I think is really what makes it feel like legacy now. I think before then it felt like a bunch of, all in combo decks going at it really hard.
Right. So it's got the Brainstorm, Days, Force Identity. Some notable cards that are legal that are banned in Legacy are like Entomb, Psychic Frog, Deathrite Shaman, Dig Through Time, Treasure
Yeah.
Cruise. So there's Strip Mine is we have Strip Mine instead of Wasteland, so it's a little stronger.
Another,
But
I think, big dynamic of this format is that the dual lands aren't legal.
oh,
So
it's
we have
huge.
fetch shock mana bases instead of fetch dual mana bases. And that means that, like, you know, Reanimator, kind of worse. There's no animate dead in the client either. So, like, you have to play Reanimate, and then your next best choice is, like, Life Death, and then your one after that is Necromancy. So, those two cheapest ones cost a lot of life. And there are aggro decks. One of the premier decks in the format is just good old Mardu Energy with
Yep.
Luris, and Strip Mine and Swords to Plowshares, and Amped Raptor's not banned, and the cards aren't nerfed because it's timeless, not historic. And it also has Juggernaut Peddler, which is an arena only card if you haven't seen, which is like a white and a black for a 2/2 that vigilance that looks at your opponent's hand when it enters and replaces one of the card with Juggernaut, the 4 mana 5/3.
Such a
Very
ridiculous
good
card.
card, honestly.
Oh, it's
Uh,
one of the best creatures ever printed, probably. Yeah,
yeah,
it's insane.
yeah, Juggernauts are not very useful in normal games of Magic. Sometimes they die to it. It's very funny when that happens, and then
It is.
sometimes also like these blue decks can brainstorm away the Juggernaut, so they're not like down a card if that happens. But like until that happens, they are kind of down a card.
Yeah, and mostly things have to go pretty badly for you to be losing to a Juggernaut, so it ends up working out, especially in these super high power formats. I mean, the game's
Yeah, the games they lose to Juggernaut aren't like because they got raced. It's because they already lost basically, and the Juggernaut just happens
yeah,
to close the game.
yeah, and your deck's like particularly good against a card like Juggernaut too, because you're like this kind of go wide,
Yeah, you're basically
stack
restricting
deck.
things. It has to attack, so you're not going to lose a race to it. You gain a bunch of life with Guide of Souls.
Yeah, the dual land thing is huge. I've
Yeah,
been toying around with building some control decks, of course. There's some powerful cards in 3 color. Splashing green, you get like Oko and Uro if you want. Veil of Summer, just tons of banned cards in Legacy, obviously. But like 3 colors when one of the best decks is super aggro and you don't have dual lands, it's huge. A
yeah,
lot
and
of
these decks can sideboard into Library of Alexandria if you haven't
yeah,
experienced that yet.
yeah,
It's pretty good.
yeah,
I don't know about the main decking it thing, but like it, I have a deck that is built around kind of Library of Alexandria that's mono black. But I do think a lot of decks can sideboard that card if there happens to be slower decks and they're worried about slower deck matchups.
yeah. Which I'm not sure it would be exactly. I mean, some of the slower decks, like I think maybe should be playing Strip Mine too, so that helps a little bit for them.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, it's just a huge factor. One of the things that happens in Legacy, I think to this day, is it's pretty common for blue decks to play 3 or 4 colors. Um, just splashing around for lots of good stuff. And I think basically I didn't realize how much of that was because of the power of the duels. I think the shock lands like really add up when you start doing that sort of thing.
Yep.
So you have to be careful in building your decks. So yeah, so that's kind of the foundation of the format. Oh, there's also Luris and like Yorion. That's really important too.
Yep.
So
It's also kind of interesting with Luris being such a big player in the format. Is this, playing on Arena? This isn't open deck lists, but you can get a big sense of your opponent's range of deck as soon as they reveal Luris in the
right,
first game, and that's before you mulligan.
right.
You can expect them to be playing cheap creatures. There's not like really a control Luris deck. You might get got by like somebody playing Underworld Breach, but that hasn't happened to me yet.
There's no one. There is the One Ring, but
Yes.
like if your opponent has Luris, they can't have the One Ring. As an example.
Usually, if they have Luris, they're either what I would call a Delver deck, even though Delver of Secrets is long gone. We'll call it a Hydroponics Expert deck, which we'll get, or Hydroponics Architect deck, which we'll get into later, because that's like the premier deck. A Day's Force of Will, cheap creature deck, or their Mardu Energy. And you can usually kind of count on that in game one, that they're one of those two decks, which means that, if you're playing Fatal Push, it's going to be good. Stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. Fatal Push is pretty nice. Yeah, the other class of decks, so it's like the all-in combo decks. There's Mardu Energy. I guess there are like these stompy decks, whether it be like mono white, mono black, or mono red.
Yep.
I don't know why they're called stompy to be honest, but some people call them
Yeah.
stompy. Basically just like ancient tomb decks, often one ring decks. Just
Ancient Tomb
playing
is a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just playing all the hateful stuff in their colors. Black, obviously, plays like Thoughtseize, Shieldred, Orcish Bowmasters, white plays Dahlia, and those sorts of
Yeah,
like
the
lock cards.
the black deck is one that I had found and I've made a lot of changes to that I like.
Okay.
And that one is not I don't know what order we want to talk about these, but we'll start with that. So there's a mono black deck that it was called mono black Stompy. There's been like some, melee timeless tournaments that you can look up and find. Also shout out to his name is Chest Air, like Heir on YouTube. Made a video, makes a lot of timeless content, but one of them was just like less than a month ago, you know, pointing out this tournament and saying like this is a metagame breakdown. These are the decks you'll play against the most on in timeless, and I think he's just like spot on. But also because that video exists, it's kind of even more spot on.
Yeah, because people, it's one of the only
It's
content
copy.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah. But a deck I've been liking is this mono black mid range deck, is what I'm calling it, not Stompy. Um, and this deck doesn't really, it's not like a combo deck. It's just like fair threats. It has reanimate with grief and, removal spells and, its own creatures that'll die and the troll of Khazad-dûn. So, like, but it's not playing Entomb. Um, and it's a million mana sources. I believe I have 30 mana sources. But that is, counting 4 Library of Alexandria, 2 Bogart Trawler, 2 Fel the Profane, 4 Troll of Khazad-dûn, Chrome Mox, Ancient Tomb, Swamps, and Takanuma. Um, and this is a deck I think that it's basically the best deck with library, not maybe not the best deck with Library of Alexandria deck, but the best deck at using Library of Alexandria. And part of that is because it has a lot of cheap plays, and it has Dark Ritual and Chrome Mox to catch you back up. And one very unique thing that's in this format only, basically, is that where Chrome Mox suddenly becomes your best friend is sometimes you play Library of Alexandria on turn 1, and then you play Library of Alexandria on turn 2 because it's not legendary. And then you start drawing 3 cards a turn, and Chrome Mox is absolutely your best friend.
Doesn't happen in Cube,
Yeah.
which is where I've only ever played with libraries. So
And then it's also a deck with 4 copies of the One Ring, which you can power out. So that's like those are your 2 big card advantage engines, and then from there, Dark Ritual, Fatal Push, Reanimate, Thoughtseize, Grief, Orcish Bowmasters, Barrogoyf, and Shieldred to gain some life back. I find that I have 2 copies of Shieldred combined with 4 One Rings to you can reset your ring with 1 ring, but basically like in the games you're doing ring stuff and like maybe interacting with your opponent along the way. It's super nice that especially with Grief and Thoughtseize to clear the way for Shieldred. That's usually what happens. At some point you're like play Shieldred, tap my ring, gain 6 life, you lose.
yeah,
I'm never gonna die. Because like a lot of people are just playing out this game hoping you die to your ring. Um, Harvester of Misery is my tech. I have 2 main and 2 in my board. That's like my anti Mardu energy card where you can like kill something for 2 mana, reanimate it, kill the board. But also 5 mana is just totally in reach of your Dark Ritual, Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox deck to just cast ahead of schedule, like turn 3 and wrath the board.
yeah,
So I like that. Like I don't need reanimate. So that's been very impressive to me.
yeah. This deck looks great. I've played against it. It's been pretty good. It can be beaten, of course. Dark
Yep.
Ritual is interesting too. That's kind of like even more mana. So you are relying.
Sorry, that's what I mean. I think it's 26 lands plus 4 Dark Ritual. That's
Gotcha.
what I meant. Yeah.
For your 30. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I think one thing I added to this deck that wasn't in the list before is they had like 2 trolls. I'm at 4 trolls. I think your combo matchups, you just need to be thought seizing and griefing them mostly because your removal and Shieldreds and Bargoyfs aren't going to be that effective, and your card draw, will dig you into some things. But sometimes you just have to kind of go fast, and I think the troll is your best way of going fast to have troll reanimate.
Gotcha. And it gives you extra things to pitch too, which is nice.
Yeah, and it also gives you more. When you're on the play with Library of Alexandria, you just have to play it and pass. So I
Yeah.
like that you can like swamp cycle on that turn, and then turn 2 start drawing.
Yeah.
And also like this deck playing a bunch of mana sources. This deck is not like an A plus B combo deck. All of that matters a lot because when your opening hand has Library of Alexandria, you usually just get to keep.
That's
Whereas I
pretty
feel like
nice.
if you were playing a dedicated combo deck, your hands could have Library of Alexandria and be totally awful.
Right. But this deck, you just kind of hope to draw some cards, play some interaction. You could definitely win a long game. Especially, the decks in this format, their curves are so low. Some of these cards, like a Shieldred, will finish the game against almost anybody. Even Orcish Bowmasters can like really tear someone apart and be a huge
Yeah,
problem for like a Brainstorm deck, that sort of thing.
yeah. The Baroglyphs are they're not like a broken card in this format by any means, and I don't really like powering them out with Dark Ritual or anything like that either. But they gain you life, and when they do work to stabilize, they work really well. And it's also kind of nice that like they're big, they gain a lot of life when this deck does a lot of damage to itself, and the main answer to them is Swords to Plowshares. So at least like if this gets killed by Swords to Plowshares, you gain like 4 or 5 life.
Yeah, so it's just like a fair card. You can power out
Yeah,
with your mana ramp.
Ancient Tomb or yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, makes
Um,
sense.
the other deck I really like in this format is Mono Red, which is similar to the list that won the last timeless championship. Chalice of the Void, Blood Moon. The list that won the last one had Magus of the Moon. Um, you know, when you're trying to prison lock your opponent out, it makes sense that you want a thing that attacks, and then also it's a thing you can sack to Broadside and Bombardiers. I get it. My experience so far is there's a lot of this Mardu energy deck, and the guy that dies to Galvanic Discharge is not good versus them at all, and Blood Moon can just beat them by itself.
Yeah, I think they have
Um,
swords too a lot of the time.
yep.
So
So I like that Blood Moon or Chalice, both very strong against them, can like really steal the game against them. That's another card, Chalice of the Void. When your opponent reveals Luris, you can count on Chalice of the Void being quite good against them. So that's nice.
oh,
And then it has a little non-bow of having Ragavan anyways. There's no Simian Spirit Guide or something in this format. So really you're just counting on Chrome Mox and Ancient Tomb as accelerants here. I've added 2 copies of Pyretic Ritual, which is new since Strixhaven, just for like a few more ways to power things out. Sometimes play around days. It's kind of nice. Um, and then, so you have these kind of almost cheesy cards, I'd call it. But what's impressive about this deck is that the rest of the cards you play they're pretty good. It's Broadside, Bombardiers, Fable the Mirrorbreaker, Pyroglyph, the One Ring, Fury. Those are just like mono red cube all stars in the One Ring, and then Ragavan also in that category. You also have 4 Strip Mine. You have 4 Sundering Eruption, 4 Shatter Skull Smashing, which have some effectiveness. So you like this deck. Honestly, I might just cut the Pyretic Rituals 4 lands or something because I've just never felt flooded whatsoever. Um, I thought this deck's mana could afford Library of Alexandria, but I think you mulligan a little too aggressively for that card, and you prefer, I think just like what's it called, the 5 mana monk, Pinnacle Monk, just the MDFC is probably going to be better because your cards being red matters a lot.
you definitely have less interaction. So what? Are you mulliganing a lot to like either a Chalice or a Blood Moon a lot of the time?
Yeah, I think you have a surprising amount of interaction. So you have the Bombardiers, which can sack your random things to deal with stuff. It's also another out to your One Ring. You have Pyroglyph, you have Fury,
Well,
and then in the
uh,
board you have. You mean like stack interaction?
yeah, I mean you have a lot of
Sure.
things that kill creatures.
Yes. So I think
Anything,
this is the best deck like you can play against Mardu, to be clear,
yeah.
especially with Blood Moon over Magus. So maybe I'm overreading it because maybe I just don't need Blood Moon over Magus.
Well, one thing that's
Or else
going
go
on
ahead.
is Mardu Energy is like really popular on ladder.
Yeah, we'll get to kind of the final archetype I like, which is like the blue hydroponics decks, and I think part of why Mardu Energy is very good is because I could not find a way to make those types of deck good against Mardu.
Yeah, my I've think I have a list that's better against them than most of them. Where I'm like not combo or anything, and I'm just sort of focused on being a blue black mid range deck, and I feel like maybe at best I'm 50%. So
Yeah, another nice feature of the mono red deck is my sideboard. I have 4 Lithomantic Barrage and 2 Pyrokinesis. Lithomantic Barrage, pretty awesome in this format. Lots of stuff die to it. I could see main decking 1 or 2.
yeah.
Because I might play around as I play this deck more with like maybe not just playing 4 of all these things.
Hey,
And
is Macabre better than Surgical? I've been playing Surgical.
then yeah, so people can counter the Surgical. My deck has
Right.
Chalice for one, so I think I definitely can't play Surgical.
Oh,
Um,
right.
the Macabre gets through that. I'm actually thinking I'm going to split this with like Unlicensed Hearse or something for like more fair Reanimator matchups or people kind of juking into more fair things, so it's still like a threat. Um,
Your last deck had Macabre also, and that one didn't
yeah,
have
that
Chalice,
one.
right?
Yes, but it has Baroglyph,
Oh,
so like you
okay.
can draw the Macabre off your Baroglyph.
Sure. All right.
I mean, these decks play Force of Will. Some of these all-in reanimator decks just play Force of Will, which Macabre gets around.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
Um, so yeah, I would definitely. I think there's basically a turbo reanimator deck to be clear, and if you're playing best of one, I expect you'll play against this deck a lot. I'm guessing this is the best possible best of one deck. It is like Force of Will, Daze, um, Reanimate, Life, Death, Entomb. It has Mystical Tutors and Vampiric Tutors. It's a blue-black deck, and then what it does is it plays one Wrath and Mikey and one World Spine Worm, and it just reanimates. Entomb reanimates exactly Wrath and Mikey. These are the only two creatures in the deck. Attacks with it, puts World Spine Worm into play. 22 trample, has Dark Ritual, could do it turn one. Very consistently, I'd say, threatens to do that to you turn two, though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
With,
outside of that
counter
too,
spell backup.
people definitely play blue black reanimator, kind of like the old legacy deck.
This deck has pack mitigation too, to be clear. So like all these reasons for Fairy Macabre or whatever.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. I didn't even know Fairy Macabre was a thing.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Um, but yeah, like I said, the mono red deck, like I said, it's got Chalice Blood Moon. That's like, cards that I think people get kind of grossed out over. But the other cards in my deck, it's like the best mono red cube deck you've ever seen. It's not. It's just some nice kind of fair cards.
If you like Cube, you might like this format. A lot of
Yeah.
the highlights of Cube are all here. And notably, a lot of these cards are banned in Legacy.
So then, lastly, we've got Days Force Will decks that I want to talk about because I've worked on these a lot. So, a key card you should know about if you're new to this format is Hydroponics Architect. It is a single blue for a 1/2 flying insect. When it attacks, a random land in your library becomes a basic island and gains when this enters, draw a card. And it's basic island in addition to its other types. Basic on that, by the way, wild to me. It means if it's in play and your opponent blood moons you, the land not only taps for blue, like it taps for the other things. It just does its other abilities because it doesn't become a mountain because it's an island. So, anyways, that's like Hydroponics Architect is like the premier blue deck. Or blue like threat. Now it's not very good at dealing damage. It's just a 1/2 flying, but it's just like very good at drawing cards. Your fetch lands will become islands, so you can like fetch them. Your strip mines will become islands. From there, you have a lot of options. This is also a Ponder Brainstorm deck. Usually you'll have Tamiyo. I've enjoyed playing 2 Tamiyo in these decks. I do find the legend thing gets in the way. I find it's not that fast. It's kind of doing a similar thing as the Architect, so you end up with a lot of copies of like the same kind of card. That ultimately, these are like card advantage cards that don't actually put the pressure on your opponent. And your card advantage is just like resulting to your disruption being Dazed and Force of Will, which doesn't always work either. So like you're looking for interaction in other ways, which is like removal. Good news is like you have Fatal Push, you have Lightning Bolt, you have Swords of Plowshares, and like whatever your second color is, it probably works out. I found, I like the idea of playing Luris, though it hasn't been the most important thing. It comes up sometimes, and there's not really any expensive cards I'm gunning to play. I don't think, weirdly, I don't think Oko's that good in this format, as an example. I don't think Oko, has actually stood the test of time that much. If you play a lot of Vintage Cube, you might know that as well. It's not, like, totally game-breaking.
Yeah, I've tried some Oko in this format, and it's okay. It's like kind of a nice control win condition, maybe, but it's really not what it was. It maybe is even at the point where they could unban it in Legacy. I don't know.
So yeah, right now I'm liking just straight Sultai upsides. You get Deathrite Shaman. Deathrite Shaman's pretty good in this format, honestly. There is this sense of, people are going to play a 1-drop. They're going to daze your card. They're going to strip mine you. Like, that's just a thing that's going to happen when you're on the draw in these Delvery mirrors. And I think Deathrite Shaman's a very good 1-drop to do that with, because you get this extra mana. But also, it's a card that, maybe not right away is going to recover you, but having these, like, mana dorks do recover you from getting strip mined out of the game. So that's very nice, and it has been pretty threatening. And it's a nice check against your animator decks if you have reliable green mana, which, I think when you play 8 to 10 fetch lands with just one breeding pool, it's not as reliable as, maybe playing a bit more than that, because maybe you have other green cards. And then if you're blue-black, Psychic Frog, I think, is clearly excellent in this format. 2-drops can be kind of rough into the world of, like, Swords, Plowshares, Fatal Push, Daze, even Force of Will on it, when these matchups are so much about mana. Um, Psychic Frog, it just kind of dominates battlefields and it's in play in this format, and also it's blue. So like it's nice to add threats to your deck that just pitch the Force of Will anyways. And if your concern about it is that, it's a little hard to develop sometimes, especially on the draw. Like being a blue card, you kind of don't have any sweat about that. The card I'm kind of unimpressed with, but you have to play this stupid mini game, is Bowmasters, where Bowmasters is quite good against this deck, and the Mardu Energy deck is playing 4. And you're thinking you want Bowmasters because it's good against this deck. It also kills other Bowmasters, so you're naturally adding more outs to your deck by playing them. I would say Bowmasters is pretty medium against Mardu, though. It's basically 2 mana deal 1. The 1/1 token I feel like never matters.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay against Mardu as like an instant.
Yeah, but like, I could argue that Recruiting Hex kills enemy Bowmasters and is way better against Mardu or something like that, or Bloodchief Sturse might be better because that's going to hit flipped Planeswalkers like Tamiyo and Ajani.
Yeah. Basically the first deck I ever built was a blue-black deck, and I'll probably throw my list up there just so people see what I tried. I tried more of a spell-based one. I didn't have Deathrite Shaman, but some things are similar between our lists, just how it turned out.
Yeah,
but I only had one. I only had one Orcish Bowmaster because I agree it's not that good in this deck.
Yeah, I see you have one Shitong, which I might use in another blue Delvery deck because something I'm thinking about ways to pull ahead. So you have Flow State too. I really like white. I like Swords to Plowshare killing everything. That card can save you from like your opponent reanimating Atraxa sometimes because those reanimator decks aren't actually like that good at the cards they get off Atraxa. And not need Revolt for Fatal Push on certain things. Gain yourself some life maybe. And then I also really like Prismatic Ending. So there's a big draws to white for me, and you could still play Luris if you're playing white. I even had a Jeskai deck that didn't have Luris, and what I did is I played Flage, and I didn't pair into Mardu, and I didn't play Strip Mine, and I played like 19 lands without Strip Mine, and I just kept playing against decks that I felt like I needed, the Strip Mine part of my deck to be online. It's so good with Hydroponics Architect. Like, you will hit the Strip Mines after multiple attacks or whatever, and like, when you play with this card, you don't always have to be in a rush to like fetch as soon as you get one thing in your deck to be an island. You can just sit around a little bit and wait till you have a lot because you'll hit fetch lands that hit other fetch lands and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. I don't know if you mentioned this, but I don't think you did, and it's that Daze is really good with Hydroponics Architect too because
yes.
It turns turns things into islands. You bounce them, and then when you replay them again, because of the way it works, it's like, a permanent text because it's an arena thing. You just get to draw another card.
Yes, and it changes how I think Daze functions in this format, where like I think sometimes you want to play into Daze more than you would in Legacy. I think people overblow it in Legacy, and you should play into Daze more than people do because your opponent returning a land is not free, and it's just a 1-for-1 at the end of the day. But it like you get punished for them dazing you later, is what I'm gonna say. If it works,
So like you could play around it for 3 turns or whatever, and you be happy with yourself, but then they might find one of these islands, and then at which point they could just sort of cash in their dazes anyways.
Yeah, they might get a successful daze that counters your spell and bounces a land that draws a card, or they might just make you pay a mana and bounce their land that draws a card.
Yeah, and then also that's compounded by the fact that you just spent 3 turns burning.
Yeah, the fact that you didn't play something, so like it's extra bad. Yeah, I played some red decks too. Expressive Iteration, really impressive. Flow State also. I think this might be a way to pull ahead in these Delvery mirrors. So when I played the Flage deck, I played Expressive Iteration, and I really liked that kind of combination of things going on. I liked the idea of blue-white with Flow State because I would play Prismatic Ending. I see here you have Thoughtseize. Makes sense. I think maybe this deck could get away with playing Inquisition for the life total loss reason.
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe.
You don't really care about your opponent's force of will when you're.
I was hitting like 1 rings and stuff too.
Yeah, that's true. There are some big things, and sometimes you play against like Sneak and Show, and you don't show and tell is not the card you're supposed to take. Sometimes you're supposed to take the payoff or whatever.
You could maybe do a split.
Sneak and Show is a deck in this format, by the way, that's quite popular. I'm not that impressed with it. I'm sure some of the decks I play are quite bad into it. Not really the Delvery decks, but like the mono red or mono black deck. I don't know if there could be a good Omnitel deck. that is a little bit more appealing to me because I think Show and Tell is not a good card. I think Emrakul is not really a good card, and I think Atraxa and Omniscience are blue, and give you a lot more game when you Show and Tell one of those into play.
I think mostly when I've played against Show and Tell, it's been Omniscience.
Okay, there's just a lot I see that are just the sneak attack Emrakul Atraxa thing, and it's like not that good. And I've played some Reanimator Atraxa decks myself and had an opponent put in Emrakul and I put in Atraxa and I won from that position.
Yeah. I have had some trouble with those decks. Those and like Doomsday, I think of as kind of similar decks.
Right, Doomsday's a new addition to the format with Marvel, weirdly enough. I don't know how this happens. Like, there's like these bonus sheet Marvel cards, not bonus sheet, but like extra Marvel cards, like Commander or Jumpstart or something that made it in. But it's not weird to me that those made it onto Arena. But what I will say is Fantastic Card did not make it in. So I don't know
Hmm.
where like the line was drawn.
Yeah, it's pretty funny to me. At this point, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. If someone plays something against me, I'm like, yeah, okay. We got into the format somehow.
Yeah.
But so Vexing Bobble's a card that I've had pain with what they play in those decks. They just like throw it
Mhm.
down and then you can't force.
Yeah,
So
a
they,
nice
I think they
another
might be
great
good
highlight.
against the force will decks.
Prismatic Ending has been really good at covering that card for me. There's also a lot of Chrome Mox decks, which I love having Prismatic Ending for.
Yeah, I mean this makes sense. I
Yeah.
haven't played with him yet, but I've been shelling out some blue white control decks. Not with Luris though. What would you be getting back if you played Luris? What's your idea for that with blue white?
Yeah, it's like mostly just things that die. You can play some Mishra's Bauble. I don't like playing a lot of Mishra's Bauble. They're not that good. Um, there's sideboard things. Another card in the green deck I kind of thought would be good against Mardu is Culling Ritual. I like that, I could blow up everything in play and maybe just grab Luris, play Luris, and then play like a Bowmasters or Deathrite for my graveyards. But like practice that wasn't really happening or that good. Sometimes they would have Luris too.
Yeah,
That I didn't have an answer for, and they just start getting back their graveyard. Um, so yeah, you don't have to play Luris. I'm not sure Stoneforge is very good. Um,
probably not.
yeah, Wan Shi Tong, I guess, was one that sounded like it could pull ahead. It's pretty bad in the Bowmasters. Um,
Yeah, I've only got one. It's been so. It
yeah, it's
can be
not good to
really
be
good.
cast with Luris. To be clear, you can't put any mana into the X. I mean, it's not horrible, but
Can you not?
no, you can't with Luris. Its mana
Huh.
value has to be 2 when you put it on the stack. But it's a
Okay.
big top endy threat you're allowed to play in a deck with Luris, so that's not unwelcome.
Yeah. Well, I thought you could. I guess I've never. I had it in a historic deck where I thought I could, and I thought I did, but maybe I never did. Um. Anyways, yeah, Wanshi. It's pretty bad against Bowmasters, and it's a little clunky, but you can throw it out on turn 2 a lot and get a trigger, and then at
Yeah.
that point it's like pretty decent.
Another card banned in Legacy is Ragavan. That I already mentioned them on a red deck, but maybe you think you want to play this blue-red Delver deck. Um, does not line up well into the card Bowmasters, but other than that, it's like phenomenal in this format, in my opinion.
Yeah, you don't have
I mean,
Lightning Bolt, right? Or yeah, you do.
you could, yeah, you can have Lightning
Yeah,
Bolt
what
if you
am I
want,
saying?
or Unholy Heat. You have to
Historically,
kind
you
of pick
don't
your
have
battles
Lightning
against
Bolt.
frogs, yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, like doing the Daze Strip Mine Forcible thing with a Ragavan, which by the way, when you're on the play, you're probably not even that scared of Bowmasters. Is like it's really good. Just getting that mana advantage, and so many of these decks just play a bunch of cheap cards that are you're totally happy to cast. So like yeah, I don't know. I might end up playing Ragavan in the blue shell. Like the upside is definitely there, and like I said, I think when you're on the play, I wouldn't sweat Bowmaster with your Strip Mine Days deck.
No, definitely not. I could see it. I've been so, enamored by Psychic Frog that I haven't really tried red, but
Yes, when you play blue red, because I've played a lot of the Psychic Frog deck, there's like some interesting dynamics you'll learn too, where people might say, and they might have been wrong about how good or bad Force of Will is. Usually they'd say it's bad in these types of mirrors. Um, if one deck is playing blue red and the other deck is playing Psychic Frog, I think both players might want Force of Will in their deck because putting the Psychic Frog on the stack is like declaring victory. Like it's just the battle that needs to be won by one
yeah.
player.
So I knew that Force of Will got cited out a lot in like old Legacy, but this is like, a long time ago when like Jason Mind Sculptor was a thing and the games are a lot different. I wonder if Psychic Frog just changed that dynamic entirely. Like I'm not sure, for example, if people who played the Psychic Frog Dear Mirror Reanimator mirrors in Legacy, like if that was the consensus there, very well may not have been.
Yeah, I
I
felt
don't
like,
I
it's
don't know
kind of
if you
play
have any
draw
info on
dependent,
that.
where like obviously Days is much better when you're on the play. On the draw, you have extra blue card maybe for the Force of Will. The Days is going to be harder to use, and maybe, I felt like there might have been a time where what I would do is when I'm on the play, I would board out 4 Force of Will, and when I'm on the draw, I would board out 2 Force of Will in 2 days or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, to be fair, I've kind of been doing that sort of thing when I play these matchups,
Yeah.
when I play these decks, but I don't, I'm not an expert or anything. In your Sultai deck, you don't have Digger or Treasure Cruise. Did you consider those cards?
Yeah, I felt like Frog really gets in the way of those cards. You're like exiling 3 cards from your graveyard almost every turn you have that card in this format, I feel like.
Okay. I was thinking like maybe Deathrite Shaman, maybe it gets in the way. I
Yeah,
mean,
also,
I've
I
been
kind of
playing
take issue with.
Dig with
Yeah,
Blue Black and Frog, and I've been loving it. So I don't know.
okay. Yeah, I'll give it more of a shot. I
I
like
like
that Dig is good with Up the Beanstalk. I thought about that a little bit myself too.
Yeah, I don't know if I sent it, but I have a Bant
Yep,
control deck with those. Dig gets around Bowmasters,
yep.
which is pretty nice. And honestly, I feel like this is what I'm about to say is less crazy, and like the blue white control decks have been shelling out, and Bant control decks have been shelling out. But I've been considering playing less than 4 Brainstorm.
Mm-mm.
Like
Oh, interesting.
there's other good cantrips, and like every so many decks have Orcish Bowmasters in this format right now, and it's
Yeah,
pretty brutal against Brainstorm.
yeah.
Um, just on top of like Brainstorm, I don't know. It's a good card, obviously, but especially when you're like playing decks with a lot of card advantage and you're interested in hitting your land drops, it's not quite the same as like the old Delver decks where you would just play 2 land and then everything else would just get shuffled away.
Yeah, you also fetch a little bit more aggressively. I mean, I've kind of been wanting more than 8 fetches in these hydroponics decks.
Right.
Um, because yeah, you just you sometimes just have turn on hydroponics, and on turn 2 you do want to fetch and draw a card and see what you get.
Yeah, and you have a companion a lot of the time.
Yeah,
That matters. And then the
that's
other
part of
thing
why
is,
like something like I'm pretty leaning towards fitting flow state or expressive iteration in my deck, where I just like I kind of like this, just let me play my divination that gets around Bowmaster, hit my land drops type of game.
yeah, Flow State's been great.
Yeah,
The other thing about Brainstorm is one of the things with Flow State is like in my blue black deck, right? I've got 4 Thoughtseize. One of the main reasons is because it's a sorcery, and like when I board that out, sometimes I board in like Blood Chief's Thirst, which is a sorcery I have on my sideboard. But if you like cut some Brainstorm for Superior Danes, that would and or Ponders or whatever, you'd have more sorceries for Flow State. So it'd be nice.
I could see playing one Lorien revealed in these flow state decks too, because it's island cycling is the right keyword for the hydroponics. And it's a blue card rather than like maybe an extra fetch that's not a blue card.
Yeah. What do I? Oh, I did send you my band control deck. Yeah, I've got like Lorien Revealed,
Yeah.
Ponder Period, Info State, all that stuff. Yeah,
Oh yeah, the other thing I think I never end up playing more in these blue Delvery decks. I've found the second Surveillance to be quite bad.
oh, you just don't like very many Surveil lands at all. Okay.
Yeah, I'll play the one, but what ends up happening is you fetch and one of your lands in your deck is an island, so you like never get this Surveil land unless you're really desperate almost. And sometimes on early turns. But I've been happy with one. But when I
I
played
felt like I
multiple,
was using
I just
two.
felt like they were kind of getting in the way.
Hmm. I felt like I was using two pretty nice. Our decks are a little different though.
Yeah.
I have Dig Through
Oh yeah.
Time.
Another advantage about being a little leaner on your colors is fitting in basics to play around Blood Moon, but also just like to not shock on every fetch.
Yeah, totally. Helps you play Strip Mine a little easier too.
Yeah.
What do you think about Strip Mine in this format?
Hasn't really bothered me. It's not really different than Wastelands, but I know there used to be, miracles that didn't get wastelanded or whatever. So, like, sure, there's certainly like a warping nature of it existing that you can't play around it, so no one does.
Yeah, but a lot of the decks that I think what's happened is even the control decks that would normally maybe in the past play fetch lands for basics to get around Wasteland, they just end up playing Strip Mine themselves,
Hmm.
which it's kind of weird, but I mean, I've liked it just fine. I think it
I played
actually
against
is
a
kind of
control
interesting.
deck like your Yorion deck that had Library of Alexandria and Chromebooks.
Makes sense. I was almost more interested in just having strip mines to kill opposing libraries, though, than my own library. But
Yeah, that's like one nice thing about the Delver deck, I think, is that, the hydroponics getting you card draw, and you're just like, you have four strip mines, they have four libraries. You have a card in your deck that lets you tutor the strip mine and draw a card when it happens. Like, I think you can come out on top of, your opponent starting on library pretty often with this archetype generally.
yeah, and I've kind of I don't know. It's playing for library. I haven't tried any of the decks for library, so I don't know. If they make a ton of sense in like mono black, mono red, mono
Yeah.
white. But I'm less sure about them in anything else, to be honest. Maybe Mardu sideboard. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't really get better than putting Chromox Dark Ritual in your deck, I'll say. They
Yeah,
just
for
like
sure.
eventually catch up.
For sure, for sure. Okay, well, I'm going to try some of that mono black, mono red deck. I think that's going to be my assignment. And then we'll reconvene on the format next week.
Yep.
Um, the qualifier is what, 2 weekends from now? It's like at the very end
Yeah.
of the month.
Yep, the last weekend of August.
Okay, so that'll
So
be
I'll be
fun.
there on Friday playing best of three. I don't think I'm gonna even touch best of one this weekend.
Yeah, you just don't. You can main deck some surgicals or something.
If I want to play best of one, I'll play Arena Directs. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
At least if your suffering is then rewarded with collector boxes.
yeah.
um,
Also, these low information formats are so interesting because there's just like that Friday before is actually quite an informative day, I think.
yeah,
Like when you just start, not that you can get a full on meta read from just your sample size, but you start talking with other people about what they're playing against, and like you kind of see maybe you lose against something that's really impressive, and you like have this you iterate it on yourself, and maybe you break it.
yeah. I'm kind of realizing I might not be able to play this, or I might have to play it from like an iPad or something.
I'm gonna be very busy that Saturday. I don't think I have plans Sunday, so I think I'm gonna have to have a deck ready to go, wake up, and get my rounds done.
I think literally my entire house is gonna be packed up.
Dang.
Yeah, because we move out the 31st. When is it? It's the 29th, 30th. Yeah, I'm like not even gonna be able to. I can maybe play it from an iPad. Well, that increases the chances I'm gonna play like mono red or mono black, so I don't have to do a bunch of like fetching and stuff on my iPad.
I play only on an iPad.
Really? I
Yeah.
hate it. I absolutely
Oh.
hate it. I feel like I misclick, and I mean I don't do it often, so that's the problem. But I do hate it. That's funny. I just play computer. All right, all right, all right. Well, any last thoughts? We could always get to it next week, I suppose.
No, not really. I
Okay.
think yeah, I think I'm leaning the mono red deck and just maybe making a few changes, but
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right, folks. Well, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Okay. You have any fun things happen to you for a sign off?
um not like I don't know, the cooking thing has been in my mind.
Cooking?
Yeah,
Cooking
with
at home.
the farmers market cooking thing, and like
Do you have you been the type of person to cook at home a lot or not really?
yeah, so I mean, I guess we'll just get into it. So I've been like my my parents both cooked, and like I've known how to cook, but I'd say since living with Olivia or whatever, I've really like upped it, and I find it to be kind of a very creative outlet almost, especially since we've been going to the farmers market every week now, where I just like have this a lot of ingredients in my house, and I try to just like figure out something I can do with them. And I think the food I make now, I'm at a stage where like it usually tastes better than, what I would get eating at a restaurant or something.
Yeah.
Um, and like I know the seasonings I like, and just I think, I put a lot of flavors in the food, not really that simple. And then um it's interesting because like I really feel like I'm passionate about it, and it's something I really enjoy doing, and it's something I think I'm getting quite good at, and I have no interest in like that being a career. Like the idea of having to cook something under pressure for someone else is like the least interesting thing in the world to me, even though it's
Yeah.
like I feel like, I'm getting this, these really good chef skills by doing this so often and really focusing on it.
Yeah. I've worked in a lot of restaurants, obviously, and I've always kind of thought that, like, man, it'd be hard to be a line cook or whatever, especially at a
Yeah,
nice place.
sometimes, I make a dinner that, I'm sure at a restaurant a great cook, would make in 20 minutes for you, and it's just gonna take me like 2.5 hours or whatever. Like I'm just gonna enjoy it and take my time.
At one point several years ago, I got really into cooking also, and I started making like fancy stuff every once in a while. Like I make like beef bourguignon or fancy chicken wings from home with like homemade ranch and like all this fancy stuff. I
Yeah.
learned these fancy soups, and they're really great. But a lot of the time, with especially the fancier stuff, I'd actually spend like a lot of money and time, and then you have to like clean the kitchen and all that. So I get why people go out for their
Oh yeah,
fancy
we
meals.
still go out.
But certainly, like day to day, I do a ton of cooking, and it's mostly like just real simple stuff that I like that other people maybe even wouldn't. It's like I'll cook.
Honestly, one of my bigger like mental compromises is like we're gonna go out to dinner and then I'm gonna clean the kitchen instead of making making dinner. Like the next time I make dinner.
Yeah. My problem with going out to eat nowadays is like mostly the expense and like I'm not getting exactly what I want. Like if I want to fill up on the sort of food that I want going out to eat, I feel like I have to spend a lot of money, because I really like steak and fish and
Hmm.
all this stuff. I'm not a huge pasta guy or carb guy, so yeah. That's how I end up.